but we have to do it virtually instead. But if you haven't checked that out, content's running sort of through the rest of this week off and on. So check that out. And say if there's anything else that I have. No, I think that's the end of my content. John, I see we've got some folks here.
Do you want me to make an introduction of our guest, Sean?
Absolutely.
Well, greetings, everybody, and nice to see you back. Only a week after. We have with us Elsa Hahn and her mother, Kelly. Elsa is a graduate from Newman Catholic, and she was the one of our 8 that had technical difficulties back on June 1st and was unable to join us at that time. Of course, she was gracious enough to send along a wonderful video of introducing of herself and her plans, but we did offer her the chance to experience one of our Rotary Club meetings, so it was fun to have Kelly and Elsa willing to accept the invitation to join us. And Elsa is certainly welcome to say hello or make any comments she wants as we proceed along with our meeting. And if you do, just unmute yourself. And
yeah, I just wanted to say again, I'm Elsa, and this is my mom, Kelly, and I'm a graduate from Newman that will be attending Marquette University this fall. And I just wanted to again thank you all for your generous scholarship.
It's been very nice to have you join us and to pass along the video. So thanks for making that commitment, and we wish you all the best. And as we said to the other scholars when we visited with them on June 1st, don't be a stranger. You've heard that saying before, but when you're back in town next year, don't hesitate to connect with us. And hopefully by then we'll be meeting in person and not virtually, but time will tell. We do love to keep track of scholars and where they're going and how they're proceeding. So very nice to have you, and wish you the best at Marquette. Back to you, Sean.
Thank you. And yes, we definitely owe you a lunch, and we know you'll be a college student, and college students don't usually pass up free meals. So, if you're back in town, please join us for the lunch that we owe you that we couldn't provide now. With that, we'll jump right in to Sargent at Arms. Oh, Deb, yes.
A couple real quick things, if you don't mind. Last week I think Thursday or Friday, everyone got an email from me. Actually 2, because I had I had an IDIT, how does it go? ID10T malfunction. But there is a place to sign up for a survey about our Zoom meetings and things like that. But there's also, more importantly, the sign up for programming and Sargent at Arms and things like that for this coming year, starting July 1, technically. So if you don't sign up for something, it'll go alphabetically like it did in the past, and you'll kind of be voluntold that you have a program on a certain date. So if you please take a look at that. It's a Google Doc, so you should be able to get into it. Patrick, I know you were having some issues with it, but it seems to be working again. But you can go in, plug it in, get out of it, and it saves. So it's a Google Doc. So you can go in multiple times if you need to. If you run into problems, just let me know and I'll try to help you fix it or just enter it for you. But we really like to have that back filled out as completely as possible before the end of this month, so we can start fresh for July and have everything ready for everyone. And it also has everybody's, that already has everybody's dates of invocation and greeter when we are in person again. But those are automatically assigned. But when it comes to Sargent at Arms and for the programs, we need your help. So if you could get that done right away, I'd really appreciate it. I'm sure Andrew would too.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for adding, Debbie. Much appreciated.
And just a real quick question. Tanya, is this you, this phone number 432-8381? Okay,
it is. I have some sound problems on my computer.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure, I don't want to miss anybody, so thanks.
Yep.
Very good. Great. Yeah, thanks for reminding that. Please fill out both the survey about the meetings and certainly the assignment, as Deb said, volunteer for the assignments or be volunteered for the assignments. That's kind of the way it goes, and we all know that very, very well. So with that, speaking of assignments, Mr. Bradley, Sergeant at Arms.
Sir, well, it never ceases to amaze me what I can learn at Rotary meetings. ID10T, I didn't know what that was, so I had to write it out. It's pretty clever. And voluntold, I'd never heard that one before. So, well, maybe, let's see, we're not meeting next week. And Deb, when did you say you wanted that Google Docs thing filled out?
If everybody could have it filled out by June, what they can by June 30th, I'm sure that would be a big help to Andrew, especially because we've got to have a program for, well, our very first meeting, Matt's stuck doing the program. Sorry, Matt. But but after that, we need to, get things filled in so I can have the bulletin done for everybody by June 30th. And we know what's going to be happening for everybody through July. So those are the priorities.
Okay, so I'll pass it on to the July Sergeant at Arms to follow up with those that haven't completed that yet. So do we have any happy dollars? Going once, going twice?
I mean, I'll
John?
jump in. It hasn't happened, but since we're not meeting next week, I get to have all my kids and their spouses together camping this coming weekend. And you know what? It happens a couple of 3 times a year where everybody's at the same place at the same time. What a joy that is. And you know that, I'm sure most of you. So I am just giddy about that coming camping trip. So.
Great, thank you very much. John Townsend?
Yes, well, I'm going to throw a happy dollar in for both Elsa and Kelly being able to join us today. It's really nice to have had the experience of all 8 of our scholarship recipients have a chance to visit. So thanks for the extra effort to come and visit us.
Great, thank you, John. Any other happy dollars? Going once, going twice?
This is Jeff Sargent.
Yes, sir.
I'm happy. Today is my grandchildren's, my twins, their 7th month birthday. So I'm just going to put this up on the screen. You can see those little guys, Matthew and Jacob. They're doing great. So today's their 7th month birthday.
Awesome, thank you. Okay,
Jeff,
any other?
Jeff, I see you're probably growing the Santa Claus beard to get ready for the coming season 6 months from now too, it looks like, huh? Is that right?
Is that beard gonna stay on post-COVID or yet to be determined?
Define post-COVID.
That's fair.
We'll see.
Okay. Do we have any sad dollars? Going once? Nobody's sad. Okay. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Appreciate it. And I know we're all excited to hear from our speakers today. I mean, one is a social media star and close personal friend of Chuck D, in addition to being the mayor of Wausau, as well as our public works director, who this time of all times of year, it's a thankless job, but especially in the summer, it seems to be a thankless job. So Tanya, will you formally introduce our speakers?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job there. I've worked with Eric Lindman for a while, and certainly Katie comes with a reputation behind her for doing great positive things. And I've known your dad a while as well. So I reached out to Eric asking if perhaps in your new role you could come and tell us about what's happening. And really, I didn't give them any kind of boundaries on what to talk about. So if the two of you can just take it from here and leave some time for questions, I'm sure it'll be a great presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm super pumped. Thanks for inviting me. I have a little bit of history with this specific Rotary Club. 11 years ago, you sent me to Morocco for the group study exchange. And you know, that kind of changes a lot of things when you do stuff like that. So this is my career change since then, kind of got to where I wanted to be. So thank you for being a part of that. Yeah, I'm really excited. Eric is going to have some specifics about some of the projects he's working on. But I guess I'll just kind of give an overview of where we're at. You know, I think it's technically been 2 months now that I've been in office. It has felt like 2 years. It's kind of a lot with the pandemic. You know, with kind of the national dialogue around what is the role of policing. You know, there's a lot of stuff to work through immediately. So, you know, one of the things that I find really important is that as a city, we are working on planning for our future. And, you know, we have comprehensive plans and we have, you know, land plans and things like that. But one of the things I brought to our city council at the end of May was the concept of a strategic plan for Wausau. It's something that I found very meaningful when I was on the Marathon County Board. It helped us work at our committee levels a lot more effectively because we were all kind of rowing in that same direction. And we knew that when a policy came up and we asked, well, is this helping us be the healthiest, most prosperous county? And if the answer was no, then why are we working on it? Why are we spending our time? So that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the city of Wausau, kind of that framework. So that was in May. And, you know, since then, we've had this national conversation around policing in America. And, you know, I think that we're very lucky with our Wausau Police Department. I think we're ahead of the curve in a lot of our policies and procedures. I think we have a really great police chief. He's dedicated to our community. So it's been an interesting discussion to think about moving forward. What does this look like? And so I've kind of put the strategic plan right next to the idea of a task force to kind of look at the needs for our city when it comes to policing and human services and the costs and implications of all of that. So I don't think you can have a strategic plan without discussing this right now. So that's kind of where my effort has been. You know, I spent all weekend kind of working on a charter, asking questions, figuring out, you know, who should actually be on this, who should be helping guide us through this process. And again, I think we're really lucky. I don't think every municipality has the same kind of leadership, not just in policing, but, you know, this whole leadership team. And, you know, Eric Lindman's a part of that, you know, not afraid to kind of share their thoughts on what's going on with current events and kind of help us all through. It's been good for me so far to work through this. But yeah, it's a lot of work. And sometimes on Sunday night, you get that feeling in your chest of like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So it's been a little bit more intense in that way. But I know that we have really great people working for the city of Wausau. I know I've got a lot of backup here, you know. He mentioned Chuck D. You know, I have a lot of opportunity to use music to help me through these things. So it's good. But yeah, I guess I wanted to let Eric kind of work through some of his more specific plans because a lot of what he's working on is stuff that you'll see or will impede your life as you're going through Wausau. And he's got a lot in the hopper. It's actually amazing. I don't know how he keeps it all straight, but we're really lucky to have him. So I don't know, Eric, if you want to take it away a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mayor. I think she's right on. You know, usually the stuff that we're dealing with affects kind of everybody moving through the city and stuff. So with those, I appreciate your patience. I'll start off with that. We have a couple major street projects. These are some specifics, but you know, as we get into kind of questions and stuff after this, you know, please feel free to ask about anything that's going on in the city that we and I'll answer everything or I'll find out and get back to you. But Cedar Street and Kickbush Street are two local street projects that are happening this year. Cedar on the west and Kickbush on the east. We started the Riverwall replacement project and the Riverwalk Trail extension near the Thomas Street Bridge. So they'll be driving piling here probably in the next week or two, getting that new wall set before they take the old one down. Again, along the river by Thomas Street going over to the wastewater facility, we have another siphon line project this year. So you'll see them floating that pipe, and then that, you know, hopefully in the next few weeks, they'll be floating that across the river. And then they'll be putting ballast on it and sinking it. So the siphon that's there right now was put in 39 or 41. So right around 1940. So it's definitely served us well in the city of Wausau. And so hopefully that we expect these lines to serve us for at least that long as well. So, you know, so I guess some of the more of the fun projects, the Highway 52 Parkway in front of the new fire station. The new fire station is about there, so that building looks great. Fire department did a great job with that. We're going to be doing some landscaping on the 52 Parkway there as well. So hopefully make some enhancements as you go through on that. And then over on 2nd Street by Thrive, we have a new parking lot going in and some community gardens. That's kind of a partnership with the Bridge Community Project. And so, yeah, so I think those are some fun projects that the city is moving forward with. And of course, we have the large water and sewer treatment facility projects, which are beginning this week. So, so as you see in different parts of the city, I mean, you'll see a lot going on and things starting, and hopefully things being completed on time. So the less disruption, the better for everybody. So, but any specific projects, let me know, or anything that's going on. Oh, the one thing I did want to mention. TDS is putting fiber in throughout the city, and I'm sure you've seen their crews. They now have 18 crews in the city working in various parts. So our engineering division is not only managing our projects, but bouncing around to all those 18 crews, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, so you'll see them all summer long through the city as well.
Eric, I think your team managed working through the pandemic really well. What were some of the things that you had to change, and are you noticing any disruption in the projects you wanted to see moving forward?
Yeah, thanks, Bear. We don't see any issues with the projects. I think it's more on our maintenance side. You know, this spring when everything kind of came down, as far as there were a lot of unknowns on what to do, we knew that we still had to provide service to the city and make everything run, but we weren't sure how it was going to affect us and our workforce and what happens, you know, if somebody gets sick or all of them get sick, and you know, kind of to maintain those operations through whatever happens. So we altered work schedules. We did a few different things, you know, to try to separate people the best that we could in case we did get escalated numbers, and trying to do some different things. But with the critical infrastructure like water and wastewater, they're running 365 days a year, 24/7. So we just had to make sure that those stayed in operations. Some of the things that did slow down are with the state, like with the DNR, the DOT, and because they're all still working remotely. And so really from a permitting and standpoint, we did see some delays in that, but they worked really well with us on doing some things. They let us start early on some projects because we were ready to go, and so it was nice working with them, even with everything going on. So, yep.
I could ask questions all day, but I would love, yeah.
Are you ready for questions, Sean?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, welcome, Katie, and thanks for joining us. It's nice to have you in our midst along with Eric, and we appreciate your being here. I'm reminded at the joy and the spirit of youth when my son Kevin said he understood you and he were a contemporary at East, which Brad probably remembers. So we are now being led by the youth wave, which is great. So welcome.
I don't feel that youthful right now, but thank you.
So I know you mentioned the strategic plan initiative. I'd be curious about maybe a couple things. One is what a time frame might be you have for it, but sort of probably embedded in that is the notion of where things might be going on economic development. I know the director is moving on, and there's certainly been a lot of issues throughout the years there. But as much as you can comment on that subject without the strategic plan, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say, as well as the possible date for the completion of that plan.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things that I worked on this weekend was trying to figure out like what is the appropriate timeline, and when maybe this thing isn't completed when I wanted to complete it at the end of the year, but we'll have check-in dates there. So we'll be looking. This will be covering a period of 5 to 7 years. I think that's the right amount of time to kind of bite off with it. But I want to make sure that I'm checking in with the community and our council so that we know what direction we're going. Public participation is very important to me. So having that engagement process. So I didn't feel too stressed about waiting until maybe we could get together or until everybody figured out Zoom to participate. So I would say, looking at the end of the year, maybe into the second quarter of next year is when I would hope to have some of that completed. I've been talking to some folks who are really aggressively pursuing working with Wausau, and this is how they want to do it. So making sure they're the right kinds of partners and, doing the right RFPs and things like that. So, we've got a lot to work out. Now, the policing task force, I've kind of put in some very specific deadlines of a check-in at the end of the year, implementation Q2 of next year. Like that needs to happen. As far as the City of Wausau economic development stuff, yeah, Christian Schock is leaving us next Monday. So it's going to be different. We have a plan for, we have an interim director, that's Brad Lenz. Maybe some of you know who he is. We have Ann Worth, who I'm sure you all know, who is willing to come in and help us out. We have a new face, Sean Fitzgerald, who is our business development specialist, I think is what he's called. So Anne will be kind of introducing him to a lot of new people, making sure that he knows kind of, what we've done typically in the past. But also, I've been working closely with Sean because some of the things that are important to me are shoring up our RFP process, making sure that I understand what we're pushing out and what we're asking for so that we get the appropriate number of responses. That's important to me. Making sure that the council kind of owns those development agreements is important to me. They've been voting on term sheets, which is good directionally, but I want them to make sure they understand that all of our power as a policy body comes in that development agreement. So it's important that they own that. So I'm working with Sean on some of those things and how to work through the educational process with the council. And then, obviously hiring a new director for the City of Wausau is a big deal. It's huge. That person will be with us for a long time. So having the right fit is really important. So I looked at the job description, looking at how we post, where we're advertising, and then kind of doing some soul searching. I've asked, am I looking for somebody who's kind of a big, bold visionary, which I would say Christian Schock definitely was. He was a visionary. He had definite ideas of what he wanted to see here. And I don't know that they always meshed with what the public kind of agreed to, or maybe even the policy body. So how can you bring somebody in who wants to accomplish great things and then kind of muzzle them? You kind of wonder, like, what is the right kind of a fit for? So I'm looking at what that looks like for our hiring process. I wouldn't go so far as to say, like, our policy body wants a bureaucrat and that's it. But, it's one of those things that you're wondering about, like, how do you get that right fit here? So definitely I'm going to have a panel working through this interview process, not just me. I've never hired an economic development director before. So I want to make sure we have the right fit for Wausau, well beyond me. So yeah, that's going to be a really important hire. And did you have a third thing that you wanted to touch on that maybe I didn't? No. Okay.
Katie, this is Matt. I've got maybe a question baked in here somewhere, but more commentary maybe that kind of overlaps with some of what you just touched on.
Yeah.
And that is, I assume if you haven't already, we will at some point in the near future meet with Dave Ekman and sort of, there's a lot of work that's gone on around this Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership effort that he's had. And obviously that touches on both the strategic planning element as well as the economic development element. Now, my hunch is your strategic planning idea is about more than just economic development and how does the city interact and all those kinds of things.
Yep.
And that's fine. So you're nodding as if you've already done some of this, and I'm sure those conversations are ongoing. So that's good. The other thing I would say is, maybe without getting too into the weeds here, but just a suggestion from an observer from a variety of contexts that economic development position probably needs to be a good relationship developer. And, I think that's key. Now you have to be careful because, as you alluded to, everybody's trying to do business with the city of Wausau for whatever they have. So you can't go too far in just the, shaking hands and making friends kind of skill set. But, I think that, well, I'll leave it at that there was some, challenges, I think, in the past around just interacting and building relationships that I think the city would be well served to focus on that a little bit, I think. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is important to me, I don't think, it is that relationship element. It's so important that you are treating people with respect, and you're clear about what your expectations are. I don't always agree with everything that people say, but I feel like you can disagree without being disagreeable. I think that's important. And I know this job gets, all of the jobs, it gets stressful. And when people are calling you out on social media all the time and, making memes about you, I mean, it gets to you. But I think it's important. I think, well taken. And, I think part of that is having parameters from both the mayor and the council when it comes to what are those guidelines? What should I be looking for? Like, am I looking for everything under the sun, or are we going in a specific direction? So I think part of it is that, in a vacuum, you have people who are visionaries and who will come up with something. But in my opinion, it should come from that policy body and it should come from that planning. So I want people to be creative and be able to get their jobs done well, but we do need some guidelines and you need leadership there. And yes, I've talked to Dave Beckman. We've talked about, and some of the others, but WAS, the whole, the mall site and all of that. So we'll have an update to our Economic Development Committee on WAS coming up in June here, or July, I think. So, it's good. There's some good stuff happening. I have questions about what's city participation. What does that look like? When's the payoff? All of it, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and it's an evolving thing too, right? Malls are tough for everybody right now. So
right.
And Katie, how's the relationship going with like Rothschild, Weston, Schofield, and how they're getting built into this as well?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I felt really strongly about, was cultivating those relationships. So, I've attended, tons of meetings, obviously, but I've attended these other municipalities meetings too. So getting to know them a little bit more, trying to understand what their priorities are. And, recently we had a situation where I discovered something on the Wausau side, but, in the email trail, I'm realizing, this includes Mosinee, Rothschild, Schofield, Weston, Kronewetter. So, I spent the day kind of calling up all their mayors and administrators like, hey, did you know about this? Did you know this happened? How are you dealing with it? So, I even had folks from Rothschild and Red Mountain, to City Hall. I hosted them. We had a little chat. It's good. And even solving a problem together does open the door up for more projects later. I think, they get to know who I am and what I'm about, and I'm not just sitting here trying to, take all their resources or, so I think it's helpful to, focus on solving that problem. And then, I have a good relationship with the mayor of Mosinee already, so it's good. So they will eventually be involved in some of this stuff. And obviously they're baked into the, some of the greater Wausau Prosperity Project stuff too. I mean, they're included in those projects.
So I don't know, you probably have begun to look a bit at budget numbers and revenue numbers and what that can you give us a sense of, what are we looking at? I was surprised last year that we actually sort of took a rate increase last year, and it's disappointed too. What are we looking at, and how do you prepare for that? And that's a strategy that you got to jump on right away.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the strategy that I felt so nervous about coming in, just seeing where we were and hearing from the county. I get a lot of stuff from the county, and I'm like, oh my gosh, $7 million they have to cut this year alone. That's crazy. Now, that's not what's happening in Wausau. The county has a lot of sales tax revenue that they're not getting. And Wausau has a little bit more stability when it comes to the funds from the state. So at this point, we are okay. For this year, it doesn't look like we'll need to do a budget repair bill like the county has to do. So that's good. Moving ahead, looking at next year, it sounds to me like the state is willing to continue their commitments to their budget situation. I don't know. It'll, after the election, I'm sure we'll have a better idea, just knowing the kind of players that you have here. But so I'm not as concerned about next year as I'm concerned about the year after that, 2022. I think that's when we end up seeing some of the dips in shared revenue, things like that. I think that's a concern. I am holding out a little bit of hope. I'm talking to Tammy Baldwin's office later this week. They're talking about a phase 4 for this COVID relief for municipalities. And one of the things I'm interested in, and Eric probably is too, is kind of that American Recovery and Reinvestment kind of a concept where we're putting money, federal dollars into infrastructure. I think that's where we're seeing some of the biggest expenses. And if we had federal funds to help shore up what we're doing here, I think that would help us a lot. And it puts people to work and all of those things. So that's what my suggestion to the federal government. And obviously when I talk to the state guys and gals, I'm just trying to make sure they're going to honor their commitments. At this point, they're so afraid that Governor Evers would kind of franken veto any kind of budget repair bill that they're just not going to do that. They're just going to stick it out for this year.
You don't see any short-term cuts to sort of try to head off any of that? I mean, just sort of business as usual until you sort of know more then, I guess?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it business as usual because obviously that would be crazy. I've made some strategic cuts right off the bat, not knowing what's ahead. So, for instance, some of the short-term temporary employees we just didn't hire this year. I'm not going to pay 2 people to go around watering flowers downtown as much as I love it. I just can't. So, there's some of that. Those were the easy things for me to just say we're not doing it. But, it's going to get tougher. It's and some of that can come through maybe delayed hiring. One of the things I did with the finance director is send out a survey to our city council. And I gave a bunch of different options. Like, here's what we can do if we need to make cuts here. And I asked them to rank, where would you prefer to find the money, prefer me to find the money. So I'll have those results, I think, today or tomorrow. So I'll be interested in knowing. But, preliminarily, it seemed like they were more interested in maybe not maintaining some things or not hiring to fill some jobs instead of just whole scale furloughing or things like that. So, it's a discussion you have to have. You have to be ready. You have to be ready for multiple scenarios. We're talking about having maybe 3 different budgets ready to talk about so that we can pull the right levers at the right times, which is not something you usually have to do.
So Katie, this is John again, and I appreciate that we've been traveling all over the map on a variety of things, but I'm curious to go back to one issue, and that is the platform that you ran on and what you thought were the big goals you hope to work on to make your difference in the city of Wausau. And I realize the strategic plan will reveal a lot of things, and other things are just coming at you because life does that. The police issues, the economic stuff that Mike just talked about. But what else is there that is up on that horizon for you that you're looking at, trying to make a difference, to try to change or to try to make Wausau a better place? And maybe right along with that, if you're willing, what do you think are the couple of the biggest challenges, the biggest problems that are going to need to be tackled? and maybe you've covered some of that already, but just curious to see if you could keep it at the 10,000 foot level.
Sure.
And let us know.
Yeah, so, things changed pretty dramatically recently, but I think still number one on my agenda is growing Wausau when it comes to population standpoint. We can't keep shrinking. We need to expand our tax base. We need more people living here, working here, contributing in that way. So that's like a big goal, right? And a lot of the strategic planning will center around how do we get people here. And you've seen already some of the plans from the chamber that, posit ways to do that. Obviously, employment is going to be really important. And, 6 months ago, people who had job openings were just clamoring. They couldn't hire the people. They couldn't find the people. And so we're in a drastically different scenario now, where, you're kind of encouraging these businesses to hold on to their jobs and hire more people and fill those spots. And it's scary timing. I came from Foot Locker, and seeing what happened with them, it hits close to home. I mean, these businesses are making tough decisions. And it's not helping our place here, but making sure that we have the right kind of educational opportunities for people, their families moving in here. I'm a big proponent, obviously, Wausau East, the IB program. I think that's one of those things that we should market the heck out of, because it's so huge to have a program like that. I think we're the 117th IB program in the nation, which is insane. Like, we started this in the 70s. We should be getting everybody here, and everyone's CEO's children should want to be in this program. So getting people here, having the right kind of jobs, making sure they can contribute in a meaningful way. I guess that's like the high view here that I'm looking at. We need more people coming in here.
Well, I mean, just let me ask, you elaborate on that. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had one of my sons and daughters-in-law, they live in Mosinee, and they just said, this is the place to be. They love being here, and they know what Wausau faces in recruiting, but what a great place this is. So what's the city's role in that? And is there a marketing responsibility that is part of that to sort of try to bring people in, or is that, do you delegate that, let the chamber sort of work on that? I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your slice of that, do you think?
Yeah. So I'm going back and forth on, I feel like we have a lot of what we need here already. Is it that we just need to polish it up and sell? I don't know. Is it that people need different opportunities with jobs? Do we need some super sexy tech jobs? I don't know. Is that the right fit for Wausau? So I'm kind of going back and forth on this. I mean, as somebody who was a hiring manager and trying to recruit, millennials and Gen Zs and all of that to come here, a lot of it was, I don't know, do I feel at home here? And so I'm asking myself, what does it take to feel at home here? For a young person or for an older person? I'm trying to figure that out. And a lot of the people that come here have said, we love it here. It's hard to break in. If you're not from here, it's hard to break in as part of the community. So what does it take for us to be more welcoming in that way? I feel like I'm kind of scratching on the surface of that. Like, is it making sure that everybody knows that we stand for equity and equality, and we'll have your back every time? Like, the police chief and I are going to be there at that Black Lives Matter march. Is that what it is? Is it making sure that your kids don't get bullied in school? I mean, that's, stuff that we can all work on together. Is it making sure that your grandparents have a nursing home to live in? I mean, it's all of these things. It's like, what do you focus on, right? So how do you get people to break in? And I've been thinking about this because we have this welcoming and inclusivity committee that is kind of this, I don't know, umbrella of all kinds of things. I'm like, well, maybe this needs to be broken up, because, all of the focus has been on diversity and anti-racism and that kind of thing. But there's a welcoming aspect that we need here too. It's like, how do you welcome people here? How do you get them involved? How do you make sure that their contributions are meaningful and important? I'm working on it.
Well, I was on the life committee, that portion where, you know, we looked at some of the data that came in through the life report, and
Yeah.
it's I won't say maybe frightening, but it's concerning.
Agreed.
And you know that, so yeah.
We have to take it seriously. I mean, people are saying that they're I have friends that said she was just at a gas station, she had a racial slur, you know, and I just, why, how? I don't know why anybody would think that's acceptable, but I don't know. If I'm at the gas station, do I call that person out who I don't know? That might be, I have to, like at this point I have to, but you got to be there for your people.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor Rosenberg. How are you? My name is Andrew, and I have a question about education. So I run the school bus company, First Student here. I'm the location manager, and it's great to thank you for sharing everything you have so far. Where do you see education in the next 2, 3 to 5 years? And what role do you think you will play in the evolution of Wausau education?
Wow, this is fun. So my husband is a teacher at Wausau East, so I feel kind of
Lumberjacks.
yes. So I feel pretty attached to this topic. You know, I'm also sitting on the task force that the school district put together for the referendum, and you know, so I feel good about understanding the climate that we're in. But man, asking what education looks like now, after we just kind of went through the last 6 months of what we did. Obviously, we're going to have to be a little bit more agile when it comes to being able to move, and I think that's tough. I worked from home from March until I started here, and watching my husband go through the process of putting his lesson plans together so that he can put those online, what his students need in order to get where they need to go. It was tough, because part of teaching, and I think a lot of people that go into teaching do that because they're giving themselves as part of it. And I think that was really hard to translate through online platforms. You know, we worked a little bit. I showed him how to make videos and post them do all of this stuff. But, you know, I don't know. I go a couple different ways with education. I think on the one hand, you know, kids that are able to focus in on what they're actually interested in and then just like go and be experts in it, that's awesome. But then there's this like liberal arts heritage that I think is really important, and they should be taking advantage of every opportunity to learn all of the things, philosophy, whatever else included. So I think we're going to see maybe a renaissance of what this looks like, right? I think that things are changing, and it's good and it's disruptive, but I think we're going to see a little bit more opportunity, maybe smaller class sizes even. That's awesome. I don't know. I see Dr. Peck kind of perked up there. Maybe he has ideas. I don't know. What should I be looking at? How can I be a part of it?
You're right on, Katie. And you know, I know you work closely with the superintendent, so I'm sure he'll be pulling you in when needed. But everything you stated, you're spot on.
Thank you very much, Katie. I appreciate it.
And it's interesting. I mean, you're working for First Student. One of the things, you know, 40% of our traffic on our buses is usually students. So it's one of those things that as we move forward, like, what does that look like for us? I mean, should we be looking at our busing differently now? And especially if things are changing. So I'm sure you're thinking through what that looks like for you too, but.
Sure. And, you know, given the circumstances with the various precautions and considerations for everyone's safety and health, and how we proceed. So thank you very much again for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
John, I knew you had one.
John, I don't know if Rosemary will permit me to do this, but I don't know how acquainted you are, Katie, with our Rotary Club's project for an art piece to go along Riverwalk. And, you know, maybe Rosemary has some thoughts about that, but if you are already acquainted with our goals and challenges at Super, but we're certainly looking forward after a number of years to try to bring this thing to fruition. But Rosemary, I don't know if you have any comments. I hope you don't mind the punt over to you.
No, that's perfectly okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. No, we're still working on it. Hopefully, we'll have installation within the next 12 months. And I think it's exciting because the original goal of this commission for our 100th anniversary, part of it was to establish a group that would look at public art for Wausau. And that was our first goal, besides having a piece of public art that Rotary sponsored. And that did come to fruition. We now have a public arts commission, and that's really thanks to the group from Rotary and other citizens who stepped forward to have that vision. And we just keep plugging ahead and hope we'll have a contract soon and everything is approved by the city and we'll get it finished and installed. It's
That's
been
awesome.
5 years. 5 years is a long time to be working, to even find the place to put it. So many stumbling blocks, but I think we're there.
Awesome. That's good to hear. I'm routinely surprised at how long it takes to get some things done. I was involved in the Festival of Arts board, and we had that small raven sculpture that we installed in one of the planters. And I think that only took a year to figure out, but it's amazing to me, and it's good. I mean, we need to plan, but I'm glad also that you were behind this public art commission. That's great. We needed that.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask, I'm sorry, in terms of sort of the, police department and do you see any, are there changes? Are there review of how do you see that process going and that evaluation? And
Yeah.
give a sense of where we are with that. Yeah, where do you see that going?
So I would say maybe at the beginning of this month, I got a lot of emails from people saying, hey, you need to sign on to this 8 Can't Wait campaign. You need to sign President Obama's mayor's pledge. And like they would outline all of these issues, like no chokeholds, all of these things. And, I'm one that I'm like, yeah, I should do all of these things, but I don't want to sign on to anything right away. So I've had a lot of conversations with the chief, people that report to him. And we actually do we're already doing a lot of what these people, everything that these people are asking of these campaigns, we're already doing above and beyond that. So, I mean, again, we're in a completely different space right here where, okay, we've done this, but that doesn't mean that we can't improve on what we're already doing. We can't be better partners with the community. We can't ask for a different kind of an oversight look at this. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're already doing a lot of really good things. We don't have to be sick to be better. So what does that look like? So I want them, this task force that I'm working through, I want them to look at what we're doing already. I want them to assess it. Is this right? I want them to look at, we have a police and fire commission who is responsible for the hiring, firing, and discipline of police and fire officers. So how does that process work? Is that the right process? How do we trust it is? How do we get more involved in this? How do we inject more, diversity into that? So the way I see it is that we're in a different boat than Minneapolis or Milwaukee or even Madison. I think we're going to find that we're doing a lot of things right. And I think that we're going to find that through this process, we're going to be well ahead of the curve. And I think having this community dialogue is so important. People are asking me to do things that we already do because they don't know. So that's a problem. I want to make sure they know what we're doing. I want them to trust that we are working for them, that our police department is, working to protect and serve them. That's why we're all here. So that public dialogue is going to be important. But, when you're hearing about the different, like if a squad car costs as much as a social worker, like how do you how do you make that work? What pays off in a better way? What does that look like? So, I'm thinking of all these things, I'm putting my health and human services hat on too. So, I want to do the right things. It's going to be a painful process though. As much as I want to be thoughtful, I think it's going to be hard. So I'm here for it. And I know you all are too, but it's going to be tough.
Anybody else? Any other last questions for either of our guests? Well, thanks to both of you. Yeah, John, go ahead.
This is maybe more of a comment or maybe a slight question, but I guess I hope I'm not putting the Hans on in an uncomfortable position, but you've had a chance to see a Rotary Club in action today with some special people and guests. I don't know if you have any impressions you'd care to share, but if not, we're certainly happy to have had you here and get a feel for who the citizens in town are and some of the major things that a club like ours and others try to keep on top of. And go ahead.
I was just going to say that I thought it was cool because I get a new perspective about the community, especially with Mayor Rosenberg being here. I got to understand kind of the, stuff that I don't usually get exposed to as a high school student and now going into college. So yeah, it was very cool.
So just out of curiosity, the mayor might be curious to know, as I would, about your plans. Might they bring you back to Wausau when you're done with your degree?
I plan on it. I'm not exactly sure when, because I'm kind of in between right now, dental or medical school, but I think in the long run, I'll probably come back to the Wausau area after I'm done with my schooling.
Super.
Yay. I planned on joining the Peace Corps and never coming back, but here I am.
And Sergeant at Arms Bradley, I meant to mention one more thing since, and I forgot after Sean mentioned this is his last date of leading us. I just wanted to offer great thanks and appreciation for Sean and his leadership for our club this year. We are very pleased with all your engagement and your creativity and your stimulus to keep us together. Particularly, he'll be well remembered to bring us together in a virtual way after all the changes we had to go through this year. So thanks, Sean, for all that effort. I know there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we all know Debbie really runs things. Whoever the president is, we're just sort of here, and we all know that's been the way it's been for years, which is a good thing. So, but thanks, John. I appreciate it. And thanks to Katie and Eric for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It was great to get the insight on what is a nice, simple, easy time to be a municipal leader in really anywhere, but especially in the U.S. it seems. So, with that, any other final questions or thoughts from anyone?
I just want to say, I thought, Katie, you did a nice job of reaching out to people so far. Right early in, you're asking for people to be involved. That's awesome. Well done.
Oh yeah, I didn't ask this group. I have citizen participation form on the website. If you're interested in being appointed to a committee, please apply. I need to make 1 million appointments.
Can you nominate somebody else? Never mind. Yeah, right.
Go ahead.
And she also offers consulting if you'd like to trend on social media. That's not within the official city framework, but it is available.
I get to write my own job description. It's part of it now.
Well, again, thanks. And yes, if you haven't had the opportunity to serve, it is a good thing to do. I'm honored to serve on the Arts Commission that Rosemary's work and that committee's work helped bring into fruition, and it looks like, so at least taking one of those hundreds or thousands of appointment spots off your plate. So anyway, so with that, if we have no further thoughts or business, please remember to fill out the Google Doc as well as the survey for speakers and Sergeant at Arms and all those other things, and as well as the Zoom meetings. And that way you're not fined come July, because Deb is keeping track of those fines. So anyway, with that, let's finish this meeting and continue on the rest of our week with the 4-way test. Of the things
we think, say, or do. Is it the truth?
Is it fair?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will
it build goodwill, better friendships?
Will
it be beneficial to all concerned?
I feel like I should have a bell or something to ring for one last time. Oh well, I'm just gonna have to come when we're meeting in person again. I'm gonna have to come ring the bell to close the meeting one time just to make it official. So with that, thanks everybody. Thanks Katie and Eric for joining us. Have a great holiday. See you in July.
Thank you.
Have a great week, everybody.